everyone, and welcome back to another episode of WJ Live, powered by The Western Journal. To my right, I have Deputy Managing Editor Joe Setian, and to my left, I have crack reporter Michael Austin.
Crack reporter.
That is now his official title.
Yep.
Yes. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off to
and
Michael.
And who are you?
Oh, I am Deborah Van Kempen. Sorry, I am one of the associate story editors here. Now,
yeah, and so our first topic for today. So schools across the country have been staying closed because of the COVID pandemic, despite the fact that, you know, lots of experts, like people at the CDC, have been saying that it's safe for classes to resume in person. And even, you know, CDC Director Robert Redfield suggested that, yeah, classes do need to resume in person. It's good for kids. You know, Deborah, you brought up yesterday how there was a rash of suicides in the Las Vegas area and of teenagers, and they're attributing that to the fact that the schools are closed down.
Yeah.
And so, you know, all of these things are happening, and yet schools are still refusing to get back to in-person learning. And one Virginia father is pretty fed up with it, and he's not going to deal with it any longer. We have a video of this guy. He was at a school board meeting in his district, and he had some words for the school board members there. And let's have a look at this video.
Yep. You should all be fired from your day jobs, because if your employers knew that you were more inefficient than the DMV, you would be replaced in a heartbeat. I literally just finished a conference call because I'm having to multitask to be here to address you guys. You're a bunch of cowards hiding behind our children as an excuse for keeping schools closed. You think you're some sort of martyrs because of the decisions you're making, when the statistics do not lie that the vast majority of the population is not at risk from this virus. The garbage workers who pick up my freaking trash risk their lives every day more than anyone in this school system. Figure it out or get off the podium, because you know what? There are people like me and a line of other people out there who will gladly take your seat and figure it out. It's not a high bar. Raise the freaking bar.
So,
wow. There you go.
Thankfully, he didn't use any profane language there, so we could show the full clip. That was some good restraint.
Yeah, good for him.
Shown by him. And, you know, a few seconds after that, you can hear him walking away in the background going, "Open the schools!" Yeah. So, you know, and I feel like he's representative of a lot of parents right now. They know that their kids are suffering academically. They know that their kids are suffering psychologically.
Yeah.
And they know that the evidence suggesting it's safe to return to school is overwhelming. There's no serious experts are backing up these schools in making this decision to keep things closed. So what I wanted to ask you guys, first off, I'll start with you, Joe, is do you think parents are starting to wake up to the fact that our public school system is failing them?
Yes, and I think that parents have known this for a while. They just don't always have other options than to send their kids to public schools. This has really highlighted, this whole pandemic has really highlighted how much the education system does not care about children at all, how much it's not putting children first. And look, I would say that if parents have the financial ability, they should put their kids in private school. And if they don't have that, then they need to do their best to get their kid into a charter school, something better than the public school system. Unfortunately, that's not a solution for every parent. And they're what are they going to do? They know it's bad. Everyone knows the situation is bad. They know their kids have to get to school, and they're just not.
And it's not a solution right now.
No.
But it's becoming increasingly clear that more parents want that to be a solution. You know, this past month alone, you know, in January alone, 14 states have introduced school choice legislation. So in those Democratic states, those bills aren't going to get through.
But it is school choice week.
And tomorrow is the last day of National School Choice Week. But yeah, Deborah, what do you think of all of that?
Yeah, well, Joe kind of stole a little bit of my thunder there.
Sorry.
I was going to say that this really has, like he said, highlighted just the ridiculousness that is the public school system. And I know in Nevada especially, we have one of the worst education rates in the country. And it really just speaks to how the government is handling and funding public schooling and the things that they are focusing on rather than children.
Right. Well, there's no incentives for these systems to actually increase the quality of the education for these children. There's no incentives for like making sure that the test scores, that all these objective standards of performance increase among children. In fact, unlike most services, when a public school does worse, they actually usually get more money.
Well, throwing money at the issue is going to solve it, right?
Yeah, and we know that's not the issue. We know more funding doesn't help. We know what helps is incentives, competition.
Letting teachers be fired if they're doing a bad job.
Oh, honestly.
Oh, and not, overly burdensome regulation from the government.
Yeah.
So, it's looking like we're fixed. And we've talked about school choice several times this week. And, it is school choice week, so that's a good thing. But, one of the reasons for that is that really this pandemic, like, there is a huge push in the school choice movement. Like, things are happening now, it's not going to happen very fast. And, it's still a very partisan issue. Yeah. There's almost no Democrats voting for school choice policies. But, things are promising. And since we can't really wait for school choice to be the thing that like pushes these educators and administrators into action, what do you think these parents can do in the short term? Do they have any options?
I think it's kind of like what you were saying earlier. Again, you stole my thunder. Thanks, Joe. But I feel like really a lot more people need to turn to private and charter schools. And I think that, like you said, that is going to be difficult to do for a lot of
because not everyone has the resources.
Not everybody has the money to do it. Yeah. But I think that if more people start enrolling in private and charter schools, and public schools are going to have to start to stand up and take notice of that, and they're going to have to recognize, what are we doing wrong? Why are so many people gravitating towards school choice? Why are so many people gravitating towards these other schools that can do things so much better than we can?
Well, it is, polling does show that school choice is becoming overwhelmingly popular among parents.
Shocking. So. I have the solution that'll fix this problem right now. And it's not going to happen, right? But here's what parents can do. They should advocate for this, because it will just make things all the more better. You ready for it?
All right.
You got to abolish public sector unions now. Because the issue with this, as it is in other areas of the public where you have issues, is these unions, right? Yeah. So teachers, I don't doubt teachers make, for the most part, often, they work very long hours. They don't get paid the most, but it's the unions. It's the union bosses at the top who are, they have these political motivations, and they're trying to get, basically they're trying to suck everything from the public that they can, right? And it's the same thing, whenever you have a bad police officer, right? For the most police officers,
I was going to bring up police unions,
they love serving their communities. They do very good jobs. The problem is the public sector unions. The police unions defend the bad cops. The teachers unions defend the bad teachers. It is impossible for a public teacher with tenure to get fired unless you make advances toward a kid or do something inappropriate in that way, or unless you hit them. It's impossible. And these unions, they work for us. They're supposed to work for the public. They're not supposed to. It's undemocratic. I mean, of course I believe in unions. Unions have played a very important role in American society. Private unions, public sector unions are not right. They're supposed to work for us, not for themselves. They work for the taxpayer, and they're they have all these political interests and corruption. It's so bad. You have to get rid of it. And it will solve the problems, because the teachers unions are the ones pushing for the schools to stay closed.
Yeah. Well, and we just did a story.
I'll get off my soapbox.
You're good.
We just did a story a few days ago. I believe it was a teachers union in Chicago, was it?
Yes.
A teachers union in Chicago refused to go back to school, even though the school was supposed to reopen. And it's like, how can you guys do this? You have all of these kids that are waiting on you to go back to school.
I don't doubt that a lot of teachers want to go back. It's not, I'm not blaming the teachers, and I'm not blaming, just like I'm not blaming the vast majority of police officers when these things happen. It's these unions that keep pushing bad policies. The public sector unions. You've got to get rid of them.
I think that's well said. And, I guess we can move on to your topic now, Joe.
Something else I'll get excited about.
Something else that's a little more newsworthy.
Sure.
Yeah.
So if you've been on the internet in the past couple of days, you've probably seen something about Reddit, the stock market, Wall Street, and GameStop. So we're going to break it down for you a little bit, and we're going to talk about what exactly it all means and what the implications of it are. But because I'm not going to do a great job of explaining what the heck is going on, I'm going to play a clip for you of Tucker Carlson, the Fox News host, explaining it on his show the other night, and he's just going to kind of walk you through what is happening. So if you can play that clip right now.
Hedge funds do a lot of things to make money, but one of those things is trading in the options market, shorting companies. In other words, making money when the stock price of other companies, sometimes American companies, goes down. They lose money, hedge funds make money. It's part of the business model, shorting stocks. So borrowing shares and selling them on the expectation that those shares will decline in value. Well, for the past several months, hedge funds have shorted the stock of a retailer called GameStop. People online watch this. This kind of stuff happens all the time. And by the way, sometimes hedge fund managers go on television, we've talked about this before on the show, and attack specific companies or whole sectors of the economy, hoping the value will go down and they can profit from it. That's pretty ugly. Very ugly. It's very wrong. It's apparently legal, though. So people online watched all this, and ultimately they decided to act. A group of people on Reddit decided to buy up GameStop options, and that triggered a chain reaction that drove GameStop's share price higher and higher and higher. As of today, shares of GameStop are up 1,700% since the beginning of the month. That means people on Reddit profited, people in hedge funds who were betting that share price would go down lost money. And that's a crime! Only people who work for hedge funds are allowed to manipulate the market, often with the help of CNBC. Normal people are not allowed to do that. Already the people in charge of our system are outraged that anyone without an official position at a hedge fund would dare manipulate the market to their benefit. The communications platform Discord has taken action against this. They've shut down the day traders, claiming that they're committing hate speech. In other words, if you do what hedge funds do, but you don't work at a hedge fund, you're a racist. Obviously. It's just the beginning. Today, the CEO of NASDAQ jumped to the hedge fund's rescue and suggested that day trading would need to be halted.
If we see a significant rise in the chatter on social media channels, and then we also match that up against unusual trading activity, we will potentially halt that stock to allow ourselves to investigate the situation, to be able to engage with the company, and to give investors a chance to recalibrate their positions.
So since that Tucker clip has aired, a couple of things have happened. First of all, the stock trading platform Robinhood, which is for these kind of retail investors, these small money people who are just who are trying to trade, banned trades of GameStop yesterday. Now they're back right now. You can once again trade GameStop. GameStop stock. Try saying that 5 times fast. Redditors, what people have called kind of the Reddit trolls, have also moved on to other stocks. There's GameStop now. There's AMC, which they are essentially trying to artificially inflate. Now, it is important to note here that GameStop, AMC, these stocks are not worth what they are being sold as right now. The thing is, these Reddit people are manipulating the market. But they're doing the same thing that hedge funds, Wall Street, the government, the Federal Reserve, all of these parts of the big financial system that kind of runs this country have been doing for decades. And now it's a big deal when they do it, even though it was okay when the government and Wall Street was doing it, when Wall Street caused the financial crash in 2008 by making bad bets and kind of just messing up in general. There's another point I want to make, though. If you remember the Occupy Wall Street movement of more than a decade ago now, I want to propose that this is Occupy Wall Street grown up, except instead of smoking weed and living in tents next to Wall Street and really getting done nothing, these people are actually making a difference. So good for them. You know, they've taken this populist message of Occupy Wall Street and they've said, okay, we're going to do something about it. And they are. They're making a buck. You know, they're scaring the heck out of Wall Street traders. Melvin Capital, which is one of these big Wall Street hedge fund firms, which is the one that tried to short sell GameStop, is sort of on the verge of bankruptcy. They had to take $2.75 billion in a cash influx from some other hedge funds. They're in trouble. Wall Street is scared, right? All of the suits, as you might call them, are terrified. So I'm going to turn it over to you guys. And I'm going to ask you a very general question.
Yeah.
So what is the conservative / libertarian / people who love freedom? What is the take on this? How should we treat this and approach this?
Well, obviously, we are not fans of big government.
Correct.
And this is classic big government action. And so I think that obviously we need to be supporting individuals that are doing this. And, you know, it's funny because they, like you said, they did the exact same thing that these big billionaires have been doing for billionaires have been doing for years. Yeah. And all of a sudden, now that it's everyday Americans doing it, people are getting angry. And it's just, it really shows you who's in charge in terms of, Wall Street, the government, all these big tycoons.
And this is one area where we probably can agree with Bernie Sanders, right? Who got the big bailouts in 2008? It was the Wall Street firms, not Main Street. And he's right? We don't support big government, but Wall Street got bailed out. They always get bailed out, and now people are sort of trying to take action against Wall Street. And,
this is a thing that too many conservatives fail to realize is that, we all believe in capitalism.
Yes.
Free markets are amazing, but within that system, you need to have morals and values and ethics. And when you have people taking advantage of the system, that's not true capitalism. That's not a true free market. When there's people, fleecing other people because they don't know the specifics of the market, and so they short things. And so that, I think, if this starts a movement that leads to like less of this happening in the future, that is great.
What do you think this says about sort of for the future? What is the future of this movement? What does it mean in terms of sort of, you have the elites who are sort of getting richer, right? These Wall Street billionaires, millionaires, and then you have the poor people on the other end who are sort of getting sick at it. And you kind of see the middle class is sort of shrinking to an extent. What do you think where do you think this is going to go? Once this viral sort of trend that's popular because it's never happened before, once this is done, where do you think this is going to go?
I mean, I could see this happening a lot more, and I could see a lot more of these hedge fund companies coming into serious trouble.
Yeah.
And, it's hard for me to try to guess where the end is, if there actually is a difference made at the end of this, but I think that this is going to be a net positive.
Okay.
So,
what about you, Deborah?
Yeah, I see a lot more people doing this in the future. If they've seen that this can actually work, that people can take money away from hedge funds, that like smaller traders, that these people can actually make money off of stocks. I think that a lot more people are going to start doing this with, just kind of upsetting the rule of Wall Street.
I mean, things like that really do spread on the internet. So
yes, they do.
I would not
spread
be
like
surprised.
wildfire. I want to make two more quick points about this. One, our publisher, Floyd Brown, just brought up some really excellent points when I was talking about this. And I kind of want to bring up one example that he said in terms of who's manipulating our currency, right? Because we know that Wall Street is manipulating the financial markets. And you know who else does it? The government. So here's the thing. Floyd Brown, he says when he was a young man, he went and bought a brand new Ford and he drove it out of the parking lot in 1983 for $4,500. Today, a similar car would cost probably about $45,000, a brand new car. But wages, do you think that they have kept up with that?
Not even close.
It's what we've seen with Wall Street is similar to what we're seeing here. What we've seen just in terms of our currency. It's manipulation of stuff that kind of ends up, screwing us over, but it doesn't. It just helps the government and the elites and the billionaires and the millionaires, the millionaires and the billionaires, as Bernie Sanders would say. The other thing I want to ask you guys is, what does this say about the populist movement? We've talked a lot about populism. Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders on the left and the right. What is this kind of Reddit movement to buy stocks, retail investment? What does this say about the populist movement in the future?
I think that it says that we need to mobilize that movement again, like Trump tried to do. I mean, a lot of the people that support Bernie Sanders, I think if we use the sort of rhetoric that we're using today talking about this, we can bring them to sort of more of a like libertarian populism, to where they want more freedom, they want less government control, and they understand that that's going to lead to them being more prosperous.
Yeah, because I think if the government was not so involved in Wall Street, a lot of this stuff would be, if they weren't so, tied together, I think a lot of this would be better. What about you, Deborah?
Yeah, well, it's a club of elites, like you said. It's all of these people that are working together to support each other's best interests. And I think that now that people have seen this happening, I think that it is going to be kind of a rise of populism again. And I think that a lot of politicians should really try to appeal more to the everyday Americans rather than their friends on Wall Street.
And you can use populism for very bad things, and you can use it for good things. And this movement specifically can be used for some good things.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm out of time on that topic, but I'm going to turn it over to you, Deborah.
Yes.
You're going to talk about abortion.
Yeah.
Cheery transition.
I know.
There.
What a great topic, man. So today is actually the March for Life. It happens every year. This year, it unfortunately had to be a virtual event due to all of the concerns with COVID. But it really just comes at a time when so much has been happening in the country with the new incoming administration. We've seen President Biden already enacting several policies or promising to enact several policies that have really butchered everything that Trump has done in the last 4 years to kind of bring Americans back to a place where we don't agree with abortion, but Biden is really, really in favor of it. He just rescinded the Mexico City policy, which, if you don't know about that, it basically enables the government to use taxpayer dollars overseas to fund abortions. And he's also promised to codify Roe versus Wade, which, is the very popular case in which they said that it was a woman's reproductive right to have an abortion. And so just all of these things have kind of culminated. And then today we have the March for Life. And so I thought it would be a really appropriate topic to talk about today. And I wanted to show a video actually. On Wednesday, we saw Senator James Lankford. I think I'm pronouncing his name right. He appeared on the Senate floor on Wednesday, and he just shared a very, very powerful, very moving speech about the importance and the value of human life and the value of truth. And so if we can show that clip right now.
It should be baseline for us to be able to say if a child is actually delivered in a botched abortion and they've been fully delivered outside the womb, we should help that child get medical care. I don't understand why that's so hard. I don't understand why it's so hard to say some people are absolutely appalled by the taking of a child's life. Don't force them with their tax dollars to pay for it. I don't understand why that's controversial. I don't understand why it's controversial that when a child can feel pain in the womb, that we shouldn't dismember a child in the womb. I don't understand why that's controversial. I don't understand why it's controversial to some that if a healthcare provider who has sworn to protect life, that person shouldn't be compelled to take life in an abortion procedure by their employer. I don't understand why that's controversial. But for some reason, it is. Among our most basic rights in America, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. One of the most basic things that come out of our founding documents is these things are referred to as self-evident. Facts are facts, especially when those facts have a face.
Yeah, I really just encourage all of our viewers, if you get a chance, we actually did an article on that very speech earlier today. If you get a chance, I really recommend watching the whole video in its entirety. He makes a lot of really great points, but I did want to kind of talk to you guys about it a little bit. My first question kind of centers around the just absolutely horrifying statistic that Senator Lankford mentions, that 62 million abortions have been performed in the United States, which is just a horrifying number, and it's under the guise of being reproductive care. And so I wanted to I'll go to you, Joe, first. Why do you think it's so hard for Americans and for politicians to accept that abortion is in fact murder?
I think it's difficult because it's changing the status quo. Right now, it's if you imagine that abortion is murder, then it's an unconscionable thing that we have murdered 62 million babies. I think people know in their heart of hearts that it's not right, but accepting that truth means accepting a whole lot else. And it means questioning, what have I supported? I mean, how can I how can I go about my life knowing that
Right.
I've supported this horrible, horrible policy?
Yeah.
And the left keeps pushing these narratives constantly, inundating all of us with these narratives. And I think what Langford said was correct, that it's self-evident that these things are wrong. But when you have Planned Parenthood not letting, people seeking abortions, not letting them see the ultrasound, not letting them see their child in the womb. And
That's propaganda.
Yes. Not teaching them about the reality of what's going on inside of themselves, that there's a life inside of there.
Yeah.
It becomes a lot easier for those people than, for the larger community around them to distance themselves from the reality of it. Whereas I believe there's a statistic out there, I couldn't find it right now, but I think a majority of women who do see the ultrasounds before they go in to get an abortion end up changing their minds.
Mm-hmm.
So, people just need to see the reality, and, the left's going to do everything it can to keep that from happening.
Yeah. And it really, when you see those ultrasounds, like what he showed in the video, you really just see oh my goodness, this is a human. It really appeals to your humanity. And I think that, like you said, that is a big reason why they don't let mothers see those ultrasounds. And I think that it's so sad and disheartening to see how the left has kind of twisted this narrative to make it sound like this is a woman's fundamental right, and have just completely ignored the baby's fundamental right. Mm-hmm. And that's definitely something that, it's something that we just have to keep pushing and fighting for. I wanted to ask you too, with this new administration that's coming in, with all of these policies being enacted again, how do we respond as Christians? How do we keep fighting back against abortion?
I mean, we keep telling the truth, keep praying, staying fast in your faith.
Yeah.
Outside of that, as a Christian, I would say elect pro-life politicians, but I don't know that there is that much more to do outside of those things. And that's not to say that spreading the truth is a small act. That's a really big deal.
It's a lot harder than it sounds.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's a couple things I think we can do. And I agree with what Michael said. And I think it's just really important to highlight we have to do it in love. Now, fairly or unfairly, and I think there's a little bit of truth to it, I think that the Christian right, the pro-life people, have been characterized as only caring about the babies before they're born and not caring about mother and baby afterward. Mm-hmm. And we have to make it clear that we are going to be there for
the whole
women
life.
For the whole life. We are pro-life from womb to tomb.
Yeah.
We have to we have to treat unwed mothers not with judgment, but with love and with compassion. We have to make it not about, we care about you right up until you have your baby. Then you're kind of on your own. And I think most pro-life people aren't like that, but maybe it's a messaging thing. Mm-hmm. The movement has to do a better job of getting across the message that, look, this is love. This is not, we hate you. We are going to be there for you. We're going to take care of you. Maybe not the government, because there are a lot of better ways to take care of mothers and their children when they're born than the government. But as Christians, we have to be there for the people who decide not to have an abortion, and we have to celebrate that choice.
Mm-hmm. It is a messaging issue, for sure. Our very own Samantha Kamen, one of our new staff writers at the Western Journal, she's working on a story right now about a lot of the myths that Planned Parenthood pushes out about pregnancy centers, and a large percentage of which are usually run by Christian organizations or churches.
And I don't blame the pregnancy centers at all.
No, but it is they do what they can to help the women after they have a child too. But what that story kind of shows is that message has not really gotten out, and that narrative on the left that pro-life people care about children in the womb and then they stop caring afterwards, that's allowed to be spread without any pushback, because we've always been bad at the messaging war, and this is one of the issues where it's hurt us the most.
And there are some concrete steps we can take. We can ban the shackling of pregnant female inmates in prisons and jails. And we can do things like that show we care about pregnant women and unborn children. Yeah. And we care about them once they are born as well. Mm-hmm.
So. Yeah, it is a great point. I have a few relatives actually that I've had this conversation with a bunch of times, and that is one of their biggest arguments is that you guys claim to care so much about life when it's in the womb, but we don't see you fighting for women's health care. We don't see you fighting for child care after the child is born, for improving the foster care system and all of these things. And it really is, I think it is an issue where we have to step back and we have to recognize that, like, we seem to be getting that first point across great.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we need to be much better.
And our foster care
about the
system's a
rest.
joke.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's very true.
Terrible.
But you know, one of the problems with things like that is that the truth is often much more complicated than a nicely, constructed lie.
Yeah.
And the left has a lot of nicely constructed lies, like the fact that, so basically the way that operates is like when they tell us we don't care about women afterwards, they'll say, well, give her free health care. That shows that you care about her. When in
Right.
reality, we know the healthcare is going to be better. It's going to reach more people with higher quality if we don't just hand out free healthcare to everyone.
Yes.
But that argument I just made is much harder to thread than simply saying, give her some free healthcare.
Correct.
Otherwise, you don't care.
Correct.
So,
And then like I said, there are some things the government is responsible for, right?
Yes.
I mean, I would argue the foster care system, right, is probably the government's job to be involved in that in some form or another. And it's terrible.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
it's bad.
It's not
So
good.
there are some actionable steps that I think we can take to care about people after.
Yeah, I think also as Christians, obviously one of our main roles is to pray about it. You know, pray and pray for your leaders, pray for the people in your nation that are enforcing these policies, pray for women that have to go through these things, and just pray that we are better about how we approach the issue in general. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we are running out of time. I want to thank all of you so much for listening to WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. Now, as you know, WJ Live airs every weekday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, 2 p.m. Pacific. To those of you who are joining us on YouTube, you can also listen to WJ Live on the go on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, or wherever you get your podcasts. And to our audio listeners, go to youtube.com/WJ Live, click the subscribe button, and hit the bell
Ding!
to be notified when a new podcast goes live. Of course, there's one really big thing you can do to support us. You can support real journalism that speaks truth by becoming a subscriber at westernjournal.com/join. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a great weekend, and we will see you on Monday. Gives them a warm, fuzzy feeling inside to know, oh, we're in the Paris Climate Agreement. I don't actually have to do anything. I just have to know that we're in the accord, and the Earth is going to get better because of that. And it's meaningless, but it makes you feel like you're accomplishing something, even when you're not. It's the same reason that you hashtag activism. You know, you put a hashtag on Twitter and you pretend like you've actually made a difference when you haven't. It's the same thing. It is just virtue signaling.